Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Manmohan Singh, the gentle giant of Indian politics, and today the country is mourning the man who shaped her economic landscape, ushering in the age of new transformation through bold economic reforms that dismantled the license Raj. It opened up the economy to foreign investments and it even liberalized trade policies. But Manmohan Singh, remember, is also a politician who did not know how to play politics. And that is the reason why, when you think about his times, his legacy today, there are multiple instances where people talk about how perhaps in his own party he got isolated. A thinker and a scholar, he always decided to put the country first. And as he himself said, history will be kinder to him than his peers. We're also talking of Rahul Gandhi, who earlier today, remember, has paid tribute to the man, remembering him as his guide and mentor. Those are the images on the extreme right of your screens. And then you also have the Narendra Modi government that has announced a 7-day national mourning for the man who helped India when the country faced severe balance of payments crisis. So we are speaking about the lives and times of the late Dr. Manmohan Singh. We are speaking about his legacy. We are speaking about the kind of contribution that, remember, the man himself has made. And he was well aware. He said time and again that history, he hopes, will be kinder to him. Let's take a little moment to just go back into those times when Manmohan Singh, remember, was confronted with a lot of issues, his coalition dharma that he spoke about. There were multiple scams, a lot of those charges. The opposition then that was led by the BJP said a lot of things about him. But this is then Dr. Manmohan Singh responding to all that in his own way.
Well, I honestly believe that history will be kinder to me than the contemporary media or for that matter, the opposition parties in parliament.
So remember, there are multiple instances, like I said, where you will see Dr. Manmohan Singh, who though was not a politician, but he did say time and again that, yes, I accept the fact that I was an accidental prime minister. He was also an accidental finance minister. He said that time and again. And though today is a day where we are remembering his work, his courage, the fact that he stood up to a lot of people within his own party, he stood his ground when it came to the nuclear deal. He stood at ground when also it came to issues of liberalization and opening up the economy, something that really has carved the path for a new Bharat. It's also a time for a lot of people today to introspect. Now, the Congress party earlier today, ladies and gentlemen, has remembered the lives and times of Manmohan Singh. And this is where Sonia Gandhi, and allow me to quote what she says. She says, in Dr. Manmohan Singh's passing, we've lost a leader who was the epitome of wisdom, of nobility and humility, who served our country with all his heart and mind. She goes on to say, a luminous and beloved guiding light for the Congress party, his compassion and vision transformed and empowered the lives of millions of Indians. Then she says he was loved by the people of India for his pure heart, his fine mind, his advice, wise counsel, views were eagerly sought. At the end, she also says that he leaves a void in our national life that can never be filled. She also then goes to say, in the Congress party and the people of India will forever be proud and grateful that we had a leader like Dr. Manmohan Singh, whose contributions to India's progress and development are immeasurable. It's a pleasure today to see these three gentlemen on our screens because, you know, remember, they've not just spent a lot of time in politics, but they've also been very close to the corridors of power. They've seen the lives and times of the late Dr. Manmohan Singh, and they've also, in fact, time and again, you know, I think will kind of help us realize, Dr. Rajgopalan, that Manmohan Singh possibly was defeated by politics. He was a politician, not to be. He was defeated perhaps by politics. He was very alone at the top, as a lot of people have said. As we say good evening to Rajgopalanji, who's a senior journalist. Javed Ansari is also a senior journalist on the show. And NV Subhash, remember, is the grandson of the former Prime Minister, PV Narasimha Rao. Gentlemen, thank you for your time. And we join the entire country in paying our tributes to the rich legacy of Dr. Manmohan Singh. May he travel well. Javed, let's begin by asking you, today you have images of Rahul Gandhi, who has also called Manmohan Singh, the mentor, his friend, he says that he's lost that mentor, that guide, that guiding light. But then there are also people who want Rahul Gandhi to speak about what he did in 2013 when it came to the issue of the ordinance. And the question people are asking that who's honoring Manmohan Singh's legacy?
Well, I'm really surprised that you mentioned what Rahul Gandhi did, but you don't mention what Prime Minister Modi and the current government did and said about Dr. Manmohan Singh. This is not a time to nitpick. This is not a time to raise such issues. In politics, these things happen. Whatever Rahul Gandhi did was in very poor taste, but that is now water under the bridge. Whatever Prime Minister Modi or other members of the BJP government said or did was, in politics, these exchanges happen. But today, the gentleman is no more. He was arguably one of India's finest prime ministers. And therefore, let's focus on that. There is no point in plucking out statements that may or may not have been made by his political opponents or his contemporaries. And when Dr. Manmohan Singh said that I hope history will be kinder to me, then he didn't mean so much his political opponents, but he meant members of your and my fraternity. And he made that very clear.
I don't know whether he actually meant Rahul Gandhi or not, Javed. I'm not crossing swords with you because this is just about the legacy.
I don't know. I don't know whether you were around or not, but if you clearly listen, I was there at that press conference, and apart from that, if you clearly listen to what he said, you played a clip, you'll get the question, you'll get the answer to your question.
Yes, we will do that.
Anyway,
we've done that time and again. Rajgopalanji and also NV Subhash will vouch for it. And Javed, there are two things. There are two ways to look at this story. I know there is a lot of discomfort when it goes to, those issues, but the point is that is a fact. We can't deny that something like this happened, but it's also about the legacy of Manmohan Singh. Was that belittled by, the Congress party itself? That, like they say, perhaps this can be also discussed on another day, but I'm just requesting patience from Mr. NV Subhash and also Mr. Rajgopalan, as I'll quickly say good evening to Milind Deora also, who's joining us right now in this edition of The Nation Wants to Know. Milind, thank you so much for your time. You've traveled from the Congress to the Shiv Sena. It's a day today that I think breaks a piece of all of us, because Manmohan Singh today is no more. But Manmohan Singh is that epitome of not just simplicity, but I think every one of us has that one nice story, that one nice anecdote to talk about him, whether that was his simplicity, his smile, his humor, his wit, or everything, Milind, that he's done for the country. What is it that strikes you most about the late Dr. Manmohan Singh? Milind, can you hear us?
Manmohan Singh since I was a young boy, and yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, go on, please.
When he was governor of RBI, and he befriended my late father at the time, and he would live in Mumbai, and I would see him when I was a young boy. He in fact guided me on my studies when I entered politics, when I first became an MP, when I joined his government. And even when he debated office, I would still see him often and talk to him about many issues. There are many things that come to mind, Deepti. Working with him as a minister in his government, being an MP in parliament while he was Prime Minister of India, receiving calls from him when I would speak, when I initiated the debate in parliament on the historic right to information bill, when I spoke in parliament on the 2005 Indo-US nuclear agreement. Receiving a personal call from him, congratulating me, thanking me for participating. Many issues that come to mind, having long conversations with him about shipping when I was shipping minister, about India's internet, whether we should follow an open internet policy in the way that Europe and the US do, or whether we should look at other models. Talking about the future of the Congress, talking about politics around the world. But the one thing that comes to me across these interactions is that Dr. Manmohan Singh was someone who had absolutely no feeling of insecurity or say that, I mean that I was a young, inexperienced member of parliament. He had been finance minister. He had achieved everything. When I would go to him to seek advice from him, he would often turn the tables around and ask me for advice. He would say, here's a political problem. Here's an economic problem. Do we resolve this? And in that sense, he was a true democrat. He was truly humble and he was truly accessible. And when I say accessible, not just with his time, but with his mind space. He was willing to part with his mind space to share his own views and to solicit views. He didn't discriminate on the basis of age or experience. He could have easily said, you're a young boy, you have no experience. He didn't do that. He would in fact encourage people to share ideas. And I remember one instance when I was the IT minister and we were debating a project called the National E-Governance Plan. And where essentially we were looking at disintermediating the government and making services of the government more accessible to the common person. One of those successful schemes, the second was filing of income tax returns online. And then there was a conversation about interoperability between different ministries, between different governments, state and center. And there was a bit of a technical issue. And he very openly said when I leave it to my young minister to take a decision and to take a call on. I remember once having a conversation with him soon after I joined Twitter, and I was a late entrant to joining Twitter, which is now called X. And I went to him as Prime Minister and suggested that, sir, you should also have an account. And world leaders are on Twitter and on social media, and it's important for us to educate the public that we're working continuously, we're doing things. Public sometimes aren't aware of what we're doing, and Twitter is a good medium for people who are moving more and more online and don't read newspapers. And he very, honestly said that I don't have much understanding of how this works, but I want you to meet my media advisor, my media team, and do what you think is best. So I never encountered any resistance from him. I only encountered honesty, sincerity. I don't know this issue. You seem to know it better. If it's the right thing to do, I'm open about it. And in that sense, he was very open-minded also. He was open to suggestions. And I think if he was not open-minded, when India was facing an economic crisis in 1991, under his leadership, under Narasimha Rao's leadership, the government would have never enacted the economic reforms, which changed the economic history of India, even the political history of the country. So keeping an open mind is very important, especially.
Milind, these are very nice instances. I just have a very troubled audio line with you. I'm just trying to figure out if we can make it better, because our viewers would want to hear what Milind really has to say. And Milind, a lot of people also ask that because you've moved from the Congress to elsewhere, to another party today, but you did leave the Congress and, you had your own reasons. Now, Manmohan Singh, many people said perhaps he was the right man in the wrong party at the right time, but still, he's done a lot of work for the country that has essentially ensured that we continue to be on the fast track. Now, when I was looking at the social media today, there are some fantastic, beautiful images of Manmohan Singh ji just, kneeling down, trying to tie one of his shoelaces, to Manmohan Singh ji earlier, in the parliament, his last public appearance that he made when he came on a wheelchair as a part of that trust vote. So, this connect that he had also, because people thought he's one of us, he's risen from the roots, he's continued to remain very, very grounded. What is that one thing about his personality, Milind, that really has touched a chord with everyone, and personally with you also, Milind?
Wanted to do good for India, and that ultimately every decision of his, he was Manmohanomics, for instance, was about economic reforms, Deepti. It was about economic reforms, not for the sake. And in fact, I remember in 2016 when the country was celebrating 25 years of economic reforms. In 2021, we believed at the time that the Congress party should have in some ways honored his legacy. That legacy was not just of the Congress party, the legacy was of the country. And so I think his economic reforms, and that time he was alive as well, his economic reforms touched people directly. When you, for instance, the insurance bill, which my late father worked on, he worked on, other leaders in the BJP worked on, Atal Bihari Vajpayee ji worked on. Who does that benefit? It benefits you and I, the common citizen of India. People who otherwise would have no access to insurance are now taking insurance services. Now we're getting chased by insurance companies. So he believed in economic reforms that empowered the common person. And I think that was his greatest legacy. His other greatest legacy was his humility.
Milind, I will really have to jump in here because it's a terrible audio line, and I don't want to lose out so many nice, interesting things you're telling us. We'll figure out if we can connect with you better and hear you. But it's been a pleasure, Milind, speaking to you, and thank you so much for sharing those beautiful anecdotes from the lives and times of late Dr. Manmohan Singh ji. And I want to go back now to our panel of guests. I do see Renu Mittal here. I also have Tehseen joining us. And Raj Gopalan ji and NV Subhash continue to stay with us. Renu Mittal ji, today, what Milind also just said, if I can push that point a little further, there has been a lot of murmur about the fact whether Dr. Manmohan Singh was even politically that powerful. These are questions that the Congress might say that, don't ask us these questions today, but these are questions which are hard facts. On one side today, you have the Narendra Modi government, speaking about the legacy of Dr. Manmohan Singh, announcing the national mourning, the Prime Minister and everyone there as a part of his final journey there today paying tributes. But on the other side is this, perhaps some kind of a discomfort, Renuji, in the Congress party to talk about the many instances where perhaps they could have just ensured more respect and more humility towards Dr. Manmohan Singh. Do you agree?
No. I think that, we are people who have watched the entire tenure of Dr. Manmohan Singh. And I can tell you from somebody who saw what happened in those years, that he was a man who was greatly and highly regarded by the Gandhi family and by the Congress party. He became an icon. And it was, in fact, the other way around. It was the BJP which got the film made, the accidental Prime Minister. Then we had this quote from the Prime Minister saying that he's a man who goes into the shower with a raincoat. There were all kinds of derogatory memes about him, and there was all kinds of trolling around him, that he was a weak man who was in the clutches of Sonia Gandhi, etc., etc. But he was on himself. He was a strong man, He was a man who stood up for what he believed in.
Yes.
He was very, very clear he wanted the nuclear deal. He got it done. He was very clear that these are the reforms that he has to do. What happened when Narasimha Rao was the Prime Minister and he was the Finance Minister, I think Raj Gopal will also know, there were about 40 MPs from Andhra. Every meeting they used to heckle Dr. Manmohan Singh and say because he was cutting food subsidy, fertilizer subsidy and everything. Because they said this is affecting the agrarian situation in Andhra, which is basically an agricultural state. And then Dr. P.V. Narasimha Rao would have to call these MPs for a meeting separately. And he would, tell them that, look, calm down. I'm not going to replace him. He's going to continue. And they were on the firing line day in and day out. So this went on. Dr. Manmohan Singh knew what he wanted. He stood his ground.
Renuji, the question is not about Dr. Manmohan Singh. So, I just want to make this very clear. He was a man on a mission. He was a man with a purpose. It's just about the way perhaps he was treated at times, Raj Gopalanji.
No, I think I'd like to finish my point.
Raj Gopalanji.
Renu Mittal was absolutely right in certain spectrum, but my understanding of Dr. Manmohan Singh is different from that of Renu Mittal, because he is an accidental Prime Minister, no doubt. But at the same time, there were certain, issues with the government and with the NSCAC, National Advisory Council and others, because Dr. Manmohan Singh offered to resign when this nuclear bill 123 was now about to fall. But at the threat of that, no, he should not give the top thrust. Second thing, now whether it's a personal one, whether I should quote it on national media or not, Ahmed Patel, after meeting Dr. Manmohan Singh, told me in Prime Minister's residence that persons like Tasim Poonawala and others, Sadat Poonawala, should be encouraged in the Congress Working Committee and Congress spokespersons. Such was the idea of Dr. Manmohan Singh. But now Rahul Gandhi and Priyanka Gandhi and Sonia Gandhi did not use the uses of Poonamwalas. That is why one Poonamwala went to BJP, another one is staying with Congress. So therefore, this youngster should be involved. Okay. That's what Manmohan Singh decided. But unfortunately, Congress did not pay heed to them. Second, whenever Dr. Manmohan Singh was wanting to go after he demitted office as Prime Minister, he took a taxi to go home. You remember?
Oh, yes.
Such a very humble
and his red Maruti, we've read stories about that red Maruti, and he was very touchy about being on that red Maruti. NV Subhashji, just allow me another few minutes. Renuji, I know you want to come in back, but Tehseen, to you.
I met ex-Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh a number of times. The first time when I went to meet the Prime Minister, I was new on television, and as Rajgopal and G was talking about the nuclear deal. Now you must remember, and your viewers of Times Now must remember, India was not a signatory to the NPT, and the NSG was therefore opposing the nuclear supply group of nuclear thing. Cut to, I asked the Prime Minister, is it worth taking the government? I asked the Prime Minister, young kid asking the Prime Minister, and the Prime Minister told me, and I quote him, he says, India needs to grow at 8 to 10% over the next 2 decades to end poverty. The only way to grow is for industries to grow, and for industries require power, which means we require nuclear power. I won't go into more details. I met the Prime Minister in 2013 when the Right to Food Act was passed, the Food Security Act. Again, an opportunity to speak to the late Prime Minister. He explained, and he said, and I'm quoting him, he said, India has food. India has hungry people, India has poor people. The food must reach the hungry people no matter what the cost. Prime Minister Manmohan Singh's legacy, I think we'll speak a lot about his right-based legacy, the right to information, right to education, etc. I think one thing that we should all speak about is the geopolitics. Under Prime Minister Manmohan Singh and the UP era, Bhutan, Nepal and Maldives in our neighborhood. All three became democratic. India assisted that. Nepal, the Maoists came into mainstream. Sheikh Hasina started acting on Ulfa. And the most important thing was the idea of Quad was born in 2007 when Shinzo Abe, whose also had great relationship with Prime Minister Modi, is no longer with us, actually came to India and the idea of Quad was formed. That was Dr. Manmohan Singh. And I agree with Milind and Rajgopal and Ji. We should celebrate this man, the great son of India.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we, Subhashji, apologies, I kept you waiting for so long, sir, because, there is that entire anxiety today also in the country, to find how will we honor the legacy of a man who today was, I think, far ahead of his time, who in spite of any other opposition, any other charges, still continued to deliver. He was, an Aam Aadmi's Prime Minister, as people have been saying.
Exactly. At this point of time, we pay, the tributes to the great leader, Dr. Manmohan Singh, as well as the condolences to his family members and admirers on that. And, Dr. Manmohan Singh has been picked up by late, my grandfather, Mr. P.V. Narasimha Rao. And there was so much of family bonding with Dr. Manmohan Singh and Narasimha Rao ji, because we have been seeing as a kids that both used to sit and talk for hours together when they are not in power, and both leaders, they wanted to do something good for the country apart from the political affiliation, family affiliation, and the party affiliation. Let me tell you one or two incidents where he has become, as he himself has said, that he has become accidental finance minister as well as the prime minister. We never knew that he will become the finance minister of the country, but he had so much in by heart that so much has to be done for this country when there is so much of a difficult situation in 1991 to 1996. And whenever the economic liberalization or new policies or foreign direct investments, just investments have been put in the table and in the parliament, there was so much turbulent times where Dr. Manmohan Singh has to face within their own party. And as a Prime Minister, Narasimha Rao ji has supported, motivated, and then gave assurance to go further ahead of that. And he never expected that he will become the Prime Minister of this country. But when he has become the Prime Minister of the country, again he had so much of turbulences in the UPA 1 and UPA 2, where his own party members have involved in a lot of scams, which has really made defamed by by the political part, by the Congress party leaders and UPA 1 and UPA 2 participants, where he has to face so much of embarrassment in front of opposition leaders and in front of the world also.
Yes.
And as you said in the beginning, this is a time where we pay the tributes and then the condolences. But the Congress party has deliberately defamed him, insulted him, both Narasimha Rao and Dr. Manmohan Singh. And the famous tearing of the audience, the ordinance of Rahul Gandhi in front of the media, where Manmohan Singh was the Prime Minister, that has really put the nation shame on that. And we feel very, very saddened that both the tallest leaders of the Congress party, Mr. Narasimha Rao and Dr. Manmohan Singh, have to face so much of insults within his own party. But apart from that, today we all support his
absolutely. We are here to honor his legacy, to remember his lives and times. Subhashji, only for want of time, but I'm thanking Renu Mittal and all gentlemen for joining us, and we'll continue, remember, to bring to you more interesting anecdotes of the lives and times of Dr. Manmohan Singh. May he travel well. On the other side, back with more.